8 minutes into Kelly Reichardt's 2006 Oregon hippie road movie, Old Joy, we see a most brazen reflection of a boom mic in the rear window of a beaten-up van owned by bountifully bearded Will Oldham's character Kurt. Normally, I would dismiss this as completely unprofessional filmmaking, but I was already so absorbed by what I was witnessing, I immediately pardoned the snafu and sank my soul deeper into whatever the hell cinematic anomaly this was. Daniel London is Mark. His wife is pregnant, and his dog Lucy is a dork. And one day, out of the blue, his old buddy Kurt calls him up and says, "Hey, want to go camping?" Amazingly, Mark drops everything and takes Kurt up on his offer, which, much to the annoyance of his tethered to the trimester's wife, and sooner than you can say, "Bad idea, boys," we are very awkwardly on the road with these two dudes who apparently haven't seen each other in a decade, I'm guessing, with Lucy the dog in tow. I honestly can't tell you that a single thing actually happens in Old Joy. The film contains no action, no story, little conflict, and mountains of subtext. Why I wound up so enthralled by it remains a really great mystery to me. It was like Sideways without the whine, comedy, or killer pacing. Old Joy mopes, meanders, yet it also breathes and is so beautiful at times and takes you on a very surreal journey that will haunt you with its vibes. But what was I expecting to happen? Was one friend going to murder the other? That crossed my mind. Was it going to turn into a Brokeback Mountain type situation and these guys were going to 69 each other in the tent? There were hints of that. I mean, as far as the whole homoerotic angle on this thing, I just felt like Kurt was so lonely and desperate for connection that his only friend left on Earth, who he knew wouldn't turn him down, was Mark. And Mark has moved on. Mark works for a living. Mark will soon have an additional mouth to feed. Mark is not the same Mark, but Kurt is the same Kurt. He's a load and a loser, and he smokes a lot of weed. And I think we all have friends like this. Guys or gals we've known for way too many years who have long fallen behind in their ascension. They can't keep up with us. Or maybe they have the right idea about how to live, but we just don't have the heart to shake them off or refuse their reach-outs. And I'm assuming this might be the Old Joy, the friend that made me happy once but now no longer does. Because I have nothing to identify with him anymore, I have no idea. I just know that there are some scenes so real and so painful and so stunningly frank in this thing, you really feel like a tree in the woods spying on these two. I will say this, and this I suppose is a spoiler, it seems like the most pivotal scene in the film, the climax in fact, contains a neck rub. Both Kurt and Mark finally reach this long in getting their destination of a hot springs. Both men get stark naked. I'm good, Kelly. And Kurt offers to massage away Mark's uptightness. This scene goes on forever. And you think you're watching something very gay happening. But to me, the scene kind of felt like a goodbye. True, Mark is not the same Mark anymore. But he is also a much tenser, less fun, not as happy, more distant Mark. And maybe the neck rub was to help release that last wave of internal torment before Kurt sends his old buddy off to fatherhood forever. Again, I don't know. I got certified in massage in the 90s, and only once did I rub the neck of a male friend of mine, and it felt really weird. But I did wind up making him feel better by taking the tension and the knots away. I mean, let's face it, that is friendship. And there's so much more happening in Old Joy. Lucy the dog practically steals the show. I loved finding out that she is actually Reichardt's dog in real life. Also, the score by Yola Tango is unbelievably hypnotic. Also, I wondered if the diner the two men share a meal at was the same diner from the legendary Hold the Chicken scene from 5 Easy Pieces, which was shot in Oregon. And finally, nobody shoots Oregon like this Kelly chick we're talking about. Maybe you can fault her films for being a little too molassesy in their move-along, but you cannot fault her totally unique and minimalistic vision. It was really refreshing. Of the 3 films of hers I watched, Old Joy was far and away my favorite. And I think the most universally relatable for all of us. Pick up Yola Tango's They Shoot, We Score on iTunes. I just did.
I was completely in love with the soundtrack too, Max. It was amazing. It was absolutely amazing.
Yola Tango's great, man.
Yeah,
Jersey
yeah. Yeah, I when I saw that in the credits, I was like, I knew I was in for a treat. But I mean, it really helped move this with this little piece along, which obviously is needed, for what she's trying to deal with here. It's a big plus. It really helps, no doubt about it. But guys, what is going on here? This is what I want to talk about, because there seems to be a lot going on, but can anybody put their finger on what the heart to this little story is? This little hour and 15-minute movie. I mean, we could all come up with something different, I'm sure. But so if anybody has,
I like Max's read there. That was pretty neat. Sending his friend into fire.
About best friendship.
That's neat. I mean,
yeah,
I think what it's getting at, Tom, is Max is hovering around it with what he said, and I think when he tried to put his finger on it, that was a neat read. I don't know, I don't think that there's an exact read on it, but that's a neat one. That's a neat look at it. Sending his friend off into father, like maybe that's like their final parting or whatever. You know what I mean?
She's a tough one to write an intro for, man, because there's just, as she trivializes everything. Pretty much in this movie, because you're not really sure what is going on, or who they are exactly. I mean, you obviously you get, the one dude's married and he's about to have a kid, and the other one is a loser, and he's a drug dealer or a weed addict or whatever, but you don't gather that much information about him.
Yeah, no, I mean, you feel it more than it's told to you, like you sense that they, they're at this crossroads, between being like, basically they're our age, essentially, they were born basically the same time, so that they're Gen Xers, aging Gen Xers, and when they're and they're just still hanging on to their memories of themselves as youths and trying to figure that out, and one's doing a better job of it than the other.
In your opinion, Joe, is there anything homosexual going on between the two? Oh,
sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, dude, there's love between people all over the place, and unfortunately, our most real way that it gets expressed, or our most concrete way that it's expressed is through sexual means, so it's very difficult for men to express love to one another, and then for them to let loose, like, or for that one dude or both of them really to let loose like that. Yeah. It certainly flirts with that, man. I mean, it's suggested for sure. I mean, he gives him a neck rub. The guy's really tense, getting the neck rub, and then he releases, and then you cut to them walking away. So
there's something at the beginning of this movie that's interesting to me, because he asks his wife at the beginning for permission to go on this camping trip with Kurt, and she says to him, I believe it's something of the effect of, I don't know why you're asking, because we both know that you're going to go. And that to me suggests possibly that it took a lot for her to get him away from Kurt to begin with. Yeah. And if that's the case, now I'm not saying that it was that she changed him sexually. It's quite possible that she did. To me, I think it might be true, because that one little exchange there, the way they exchanged those that piece of dialogue, to me really suggests that.
What's interesting is what she does is that she hints at stuff all along, So that could, to me, that didn't strike me, but I've seen this before. I saw this a long time, not a long time ago, but I saw both Wendy and Lucy, and I watched this right after that or whatever. Like, I saw them both at the same time. And I just see that she like, seeing it for a second time, there's all this stuff being hinted at the whole way. Like when he's like, I'm in your hands, like there's little things that are dropped.
Or just short shorts.
Yeah.
I think pretty much takes care of everything. Wouldn't you think so, Jeff?
Yeah. Yeah. Watching this the second time, I definitely, like you said, I was thinking back to the wife, being upset with him going,
it's there, right there. That's because that's the power at the beginning. I mean, that's what if you don't catch that, like if you don't, because that's real. I mean, that's really the only, like pretty much the only dialogue that they that they exchange at the beginning for the most part. And if you miss that, if you don't get that, then I think you're missing everything that's about to unfold.
And it's easy to mistake that for just like, the wife being like the ball and chain that doesn't let him have any fun. But
it's nothing like that.
But with the like you think like maybe like she knows how much he's tormented by whatever may have happened in the past with Kurt.
Him and it might not be sexual. I kind of think it is. I mean, it has to be.
I'm leaning towards it being not not consummated, but Kurt just having feelings for him for the whole like 20-something years that they've been friends.
So you think it might be more on Kurt's end?
Yeah, and like this might be. He was like, "Oh, this is my last chance to."
That's interesting, but that's interesting. Yeah, that's even that Kurt experiences the love. The homoerotic love more than he would.
Yeah, because early on he says, he hints that Mark was the last person on his list of people that he asked to go with him, but that could have been him sort of playing it cool, like he wasn't the first person that he thought of when he came back into town.
Man.
Well, I would even go so far as saying that even Kurt isn't really in tune, even if he does have these the homoerotic tendencies or whatever, that he doesn't even understand it or has come to terms with it himself, and hence why he buries himself, is always stoned all the time, like there's
as a form of escapism.
Yeah, like you're burying some, people who are, who are stoned all the time, or they're burying something, they're trying to avoid something that they're not capable of dealing with, But that said,
some people do just like to get stoned though, too, Joe.
Yeah, I do understand that, but it doesn't take over your life. Look, everyone's got.
But also, like living that, continuing to live the bohemian thing into your, late 30s.
And I think that is probably the more important thing that's going on. Like maybe it manifests itself. Like maybe it just somehow that maybe they don't even understand it themselves, and it kind of and it manifests itself to that. But really, at heart, what's happening is that they've felt a hole, they've felt a lack or a void, or something is missing. Like there's something missing, and they're growing up, and it isn't what they thought it was, and they're changing, and so it manifests. It's like this. They're trying to grasp at something that was once, it was an old joy that was once pleasant for them, or their old selves, or what used to be good that isn't anymore, something that's past. Like the record store's not there; it's in the end of an era. So they're trying to grasp for something, and maybe that's how it manifests itself. Is that we loved each other, I love you, and then it kind of it crosses that line,
Yeah, I think they're both late bloomers too. I think that they probably spent a lot of time with each other late into their adulthood I think that Mark didn't find his love, his wife, until later in life. Some find it sooner, some find it later. So I think that they palled around a lot, doing whatever it was they're doing, a lot longer than most friends do. And I can see that, because I can relate to that, because, like Tom, like my roommate and I, Tom, we're very close. We're like brothers, and, we're older. We should have wives and married and kids, but we don't. Like what we have is this bizarre, very close brotherly friendship. And when I'm watching this movie, I could totally, relate to that, especially with Mark, because, I have more of a tendency to be able to get into a relationship with a woman. It's more likely to happen for me than it is for Tom, for whatever reason. He's just a very distant person. So I think that I see that in this film, and I could relate to these two characters very much, because if I started dating somebody, it would be I think very hard for my friend. You understand what I'm saying? Where he'd be on his own, more so than now. So I could totally relate to this movie in that sense.
Is Tom, aka Nomad Irish, is he your Kurt, or are you his Mark?
I think,
or are you his Kurt?
He's definitely, I think, would be Kurt in this, obviously, Kurt is, the like the weed smoking dude.
Let me say something about Kurt.
Not that Tom doesn't smoke weed, but you understand.
Hey, Kurt, by the way, do you guys know that Will Oldham is Bonnie Prince Billy? Any of you guys know him by any chance?
I haven't heard his music.
I'm so curious, yeah.
Yeah, his music. I have probably like 3 or 4 of his albums. I really like it. I like it. I'm not a huge fan, but I definitely. It's very mellow, as you might expect. So it's interesting. It's just worth noting that he's a pretty popular musician, I guess, on certain levels in some circles.
Yeah.
Will Oldham?
Yeah, Billy. He goes under the name Billy Bonnie Prince.
Bonnie Prince Billy.
Bonnie Prince Billy. There you go.
Bonnie Prince Billy. All right, gotcha.
I think he does a couple of different.
He has a different
projects.
Yeah.
But I was really captivated by this picture. And again,
Mac,
this is the first one
you were going to say.
You were
going to say something about Will Oldham.
Thank you, Joe.
Sorry.
My God. No,
Sorry.
Joe, seriously, thank you. I was going to say, what really killed me is, Kurt reaches out to Mark and invites him on this trip. Mark shows up. Kurt's not even fucking home. Mark's on time. Then...
Kurt, you know what's funny? I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
But like when you first see Kurt in that shot, he looks like he might just be a homeless extra. Like that actor might be behind that person. Where
I know. And then it's like, oh, hey, yeah, the van. Oh, let's take your car. Okay, now we're taking Mark's car. Oh, yeah, hey, I just got to do one thing. Can I borrow $10? Guys, I'm telling you, I have had friends like this, and it drives me fucking crazy. And I become the fucking who's the slob? No, yeah, I become the Felix Unger. And I'm dealing with a bunch of fucking Oscar Madisons, and I want to kill them. And yet they stick around.
I think everybody has that. I think I can relate to that as well.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Jeff, I got to tell you something. I don't know you, but I'm really curious about your, dare I say, emotional connection to these films. I don't know if you're an emotional guy. I don't know if you cry, but these are some deep movies, man.
Yeah.
Like why do they grab you so much?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's Jeff.
Yeah.
So Jeff's kind of an enigma, Tom?
Yeah, he's.
I'm just not a
he's
kind of guy.
To me, it was a big. Well, let's talk about Jeff because it's important because that's a great question, Max. Because I'm curious about that too, and I tried to start him, get him going a little bit last week at the beginning of our episode. These are very deep films, Max. Absolutely, they're extremely emotional. Jeff is extremely introverted. He's not very emotional. I've never seen him cry, get upset. He holds everything in.
I got real pissed off at our fire alarm the other day when we were trying to cook, but
but at the same point, these movies are subdued, and all that emotion is really buried.
Yeah.
But I could see it. Trying to articulate that.
Take your time, man. Yeah, definitely.
It's just something.
Not too much time.
Tom, let the man breathe.
Sorry, Max.
Yeah, it's just something that there's just like that subtle power. Like I can, I could recognize it, and I could feel it too, But
what do you mean by that?
I'm not even sure. But
when's the last time you wept?
A long time ago. Like an embarrassing long, What
was it about, Jeff?
It was like all right, here's what it was. I was 13. Yeah.
You haven't wept since you were 13?
No.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense stuff, Joe.
Yeah.
How old are you now, Jeff?
32.
How is that possible?
I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out over the last couple of years, just trying to find, my emotional, it's like a center of emotion for myself. And it's not like I'm, just walking through life, like I don't care, where, I mean, I was when I was 15, because who isn't when they're 15? But I don't know. Just I feel like just something happened when I was like 13, 14 that sort of just kind of shut me off.
Oh
man,
what does your wife think? Does she ever question like your emotional life?
No, I mean,
does it bother her?
It doesn't bother her. I mean, she knows. She's known me long enough that she can see what emotion looks like, what my emotional state looks like. You know what I mean? I don't. Like if I'm, like she knows if I'm upset about something or if I'm sad about something.
She can pick up your very subtle.
Yeah.
Right. You're like a fucking Kelly Reichardt film.
Yeah.
You did. Yeah, a walking one. You didn't cry when grandma or grandpa died?
No.
Not even grandma. You were a kid when grandma died, right? About what, 14, 15?
Yeah. And that was this is, and I'm very like amateur, trying to figure out the psychology of it. But there was like several things that happened around the same time, when I was like 13, 14, after the last time I cried, which was...
Well, that's the thing. I want to know what it was that the very last time you cried, 19 fucking years ago, what was it that made you cry?
Yeah, but he's getting at what shut him off more than anything,
Well, I'll do both.
Yeah, it's important. I need to understand. Go.
So the last thing, I was living in an apartment with my mom. Mm-hmm. Was just always bad at school, and a report card came in, and it was bad, like it always, it was like it always was. She's just kind of like laying into me, and like giving me the you're not going to get into a college with grades like these, right, and all that.
The
stuff.
riot act.
Yeah, and I just like lost it, and I was like, listen, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I'm not going to college. And I was like playing in bands at this point. So I was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm not going to college. And she was like, oh, I didn't know that. Okay. And then she kind of laid off me after that. And then, so what happened right after that, maybe like a couple months after that, several things, changed in my life. One, was I started, I got into started a really long, like a relationship that went on, 8 years longer than it needed to. And it was like a, emotional nightmare. Tom knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I started drinking around that time. And probably the biggest thing was that I moved from my mom's house, from the apartment with just my mom, into our dad's house,
which is more of our grandfather's house. Yeah,
and that was like,
it wasn't his house. He was just living with his father, and then you went in to live with him.
Yeah,
okay.
And like, just there was like 5 guys living there, and it's like such a, tightly controlled, just discouraging place. And I think I just sort of shut down there, and I haven't been able to, get back at that. I've been close, but I think at this point my body just doesn't, like, I don't remember how to do it.
Yeah, because you said emotional nightmare. So what you mean by that is an internal emotional nightmare. Like the storm is inside you.
Yeah, like I have a terrible anxiety. Just like unbelievable anxiety all the time.
Your decision to even do this show was a big step for you.
Yeah.
This was a step to try to get to that, to access that emotion or an emotion.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying, all manner of stuff over the last few years to
right. But it wasn't Joe and Max. It wasn't easy for him to decide to even do. It's a big surprise to me that he came to me and said, I'd like to try to do this again, because he's tried to do it before. We've tried to have him before, and he'd come to me on the side and be like, I don't think I could do this. I'm sorry. I don't mean to waste your time, blah, 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 but it's just not for me. No offense. And I was always like, yeah, I understand. I completely understand. I didn't ever want to put pressure on him. You know, I put enough pressure on him in the past when he was younger, when we were doing creative stuff. And I never want to repeat that because I was wrong for a lot of that. But it was amazing to me when he decided to come back and try to do this. And he told me that I think, and not so, you know, not these exact words, but I think it was a chance for it to be a little bit therapeutic for you.
Yeah. And, you know, and, you know, trying to write too, like I'm just trying to get to the bottom of it, you know?
I remember his intro for A Clockwork Orange, which is my all-time favorite film. And I was so excited and ready and locked in. What is this guy going to possibly say? And this is long before, you know, we had talked more. And I remember honestly being kind of shattered and really disappointed. Yeah. Now I understand. I understand. Yeah. But you're catching up to yourself, Jeff. That's what it feels like. And I think, you know, it would really benefit you to keep doing this kind of thing, because I know you're an artistic guy. I know you're a musician, but clearly it's more from a mathematical side, is it fair to say, than like an emotional side?
That's a bit, that's right. Knowing him, Max, you're on with something there. Definitely. Jeff, is he not?
Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, I just know the reason I am a wannabe musician, but I will never be one, because I was in basic math. I failed basic math. I have no mathematical mind, but I know that that's a big part of musicianship. You know, is that not so?
No, I mean, yeah,
very technical.
It is
very technical.
It is,
but
yeah.
I think that's sort of like I approach it emotionally, and I think that's the way that I've been able to
emotionally, but internally emotionally.
Yeah, I think that's been the way I've been able to get stuff out. You know, for the last 20 years.
It's more like an internal process to create the music or whatever, but then it kind of comes out through your pores, but not through your... Like, let me ask you this. Have you ever felt, and I have felt it recently, like when your heart breaks, you actually feel it in your chest. It's a physical pain, and it shoots all through your body. You've felt that.
Yeah. But not like it. There's just something in my something that I don't even know is happening that just stops it from becoming from manifesting as, you know, as tears or the like a crying response. I noticed that a lot of times if I'm, you know, sort of getting into an emotional state, I'll yawn. And it seems like that's my body sort of like dissipating.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
You've got yawning, you've got taking a shit, you've got coming, but you're not, there's stuff inside that's not getting out.
Yeah.
You know that's detrimental to your health eventually.
I absolutely 100% know that.
Have you, in addition to doing a podcast, would you consider seeing seeing somebody professional,
I am.
Talk about it or whatever?
I've been for.
Have you really? Yeah. For how long?
Maybe about 2 months now. I saw this person for 2 months, maybe 3 years ago. And I just started back up. Maybe 3 months ago.
So
and
the three. Now, after going with it for the last 3 months, I mean, is it how can I mean, is it helping? I mean, how about that? Is it helping? Or are you just well, I'll just keep trying to give this a chance?
It's helping. It's helping my anxiety a bit more than it's getting me, you know, to, you know, getting my emotions out.
Well, you're taking the steps, and that's the most important thing. And eventually, you know, you're aware of something that's very important, and that you're working toward it. So, I mean, and you're taking the step to come out here and talk about it. I mean, it's huge, man. So you're making progress. So
yeah, I mean, it's something I'm aware of, and I just know, you know.
Yeah. And that's the most difficult thing. Most people would not even be cognizant of something like that, you know.
Hey, Jeff, if you could meet Kelly, these films that mean a lot to you, what would you say to her? One sentence.
I've been going over these like all the last 3 weeks, and now I'm like, I'm drawing a blank.
That's all right.
Yeah.
No, let him think about it a little bit.
I'll think about that for while.
Think about that.
And like, and
you're sitting across from
like,
her. You two are having a beer, and you just want to say, "Your films really mean a lot to me because ellipses." Just fill in the blank.
Maybe something along the lines of like, if someone was like, I'm going to give you $20 million, are you going to change anything? And to see if she'll be like, no, I'm doing doing the same thing.
That's not about you. That's not.
Yeah.
It's not emotional. That's not.
No, I know that.
That's an artistic.
That's deflecting off of you. That's awesome.
But I'm giving you that's just how I would approach that.
You want to give
Jeff,
if you could give Kelly a bigger budget, you would.
He wants her to have it all, man.
No, I want to hear her say no. I wouldn't.
Wow. All right.
If she was hired to direct the next Avengers film, you'd want to see the Hulk give Captain America a massage.
You never know who's gonna get a hold of who, Joe. Like I've seen directors like Kelly Reichardt, and then all of a sudden Hollywood sucks them in, and they get spit out.
No, she doesn't strike me like that. Well, you know what? What's great is that
look at Penelope Spears. Look at Penelope. I mean, we were talking about her last time. I mean, this shit happens. I mean, these people. She was making from the heart punk movies.
Well, if
and then making the Little Rascals.
Yeah. Well, if Night Moves is any indication, she still has. She's going to maintain her integrity. Like you were saying, a Haneke. Like you get a bigger budget, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you do different things, but it doesn't necessarily mean you sell out. So.
I always like what Lloyd Kaufman says about getting. What do you say about getting $20 million? What would you do with it? He said, "I'd make 40 movies." So that's those are words to live by when it comes to really good independent filmmakers. Let's move on to Meek's Cutoff. We'll definitely continue on with this conversation. We'll talk more about Kelly Reichardt. We'll talk more about Jeff and. Hopefully, keep Max away from me. So I'm gonna do Meek's Cutoff. So here I go.
8 minutes into Kelly Reichardt's 2006 Oregon hippie road movie Old Joy, we see a most brazen reflection of a boom mic in the rear window of a beaten-up van owned by bountifully bearded Will Oldham's character Kurt. Normally, I would dismiss this as completely unprofessional filmmaking. But I was already so absorbed by what I was witnessing, I immediately pardoned the snafu and sank my soul deeper into whatever the hell cinematic anomaly this was. Daniel London is Mark. His wife is pregnant, and his dog Lucy is a dork. And one day, out of the blue, his old buddy Kurt calls him up and says, "Hey, want to go camping?" Amazingly, Mark drops everything and takes Kurt up on his offer, which, much to the annoyance of his tethered to the trimester's wife, and sooner than you can say, "Bad idea, boys," we are very awkwardly on the road with these two dudes. You really feel like a tree in the woods spying on these two. I will say this, and this I suppose is a spoiler, it seems like the most pivotal scene in the film, the climax in fact, contains a neck rub. Both Kurt and Mark finally reach this long in getting their destination of a hot springs. Both men get stark naked. I'm good, Kelly. And Kurt offers to massage away Mark's uptightness. This scene goes on forever. And you think you're watching something very gay happening. But to me, the scene kind of felt like a goodbye. True, Mark is not the same Mark anymore. But he is also a much tenser, less fun, not as happy, more distant Mark. And maybe the neck rub was to help release that last wave of internal torment before Kurt sends his old buddy off to fatherhood forever. Again, I don't know. I got certified in massage in the 90s, and only once did I rub the neck of a male friend of mine, and it felt really weird. But I did wind up making him feel better by taking the tension and the knots away. I mean, let's face it, that is friendship. And there's so much more happening in Old Joy. Lucy the dog practically steals the show. I loved finding out that she is actually Reichardt's dog in real life. Also, the score by Yola Tango is unbelievably hypnotic. Also, I wondered if the diner the two men share a meal at was the same diner from the legendary Hold the Chicken scene from 5 Easy Pieces, which was shot in Oregon. And finally, nobody shoots Oregon like this Kelly chick we're talking about. Maybe you can fault her films for being a little too molassesy in their move-along, but you cannot fault her totally unique and minimalistic vision. It was really refreshing. Of the 3 films of hers I watched, who apparently haven't seen each other in a decade, I'm guessing, with Lucy the dog in tow. I honestly can't tell you that a single thing actually happens in Old Joy. The film contains no action, no story, little conflict, and mountains of subtext. Why I wound up so enthralled by it remains a really great mystery to me. It was like Sideways without the whine, comedy, or killer pacing. Old Joy mopes, meanders, yet it also breathes and is so beautiful at times and takes you on a very surreal journey that will haunt you with its vibes. But what was I expecting to happen? Was one friend going to murder the other? That crossed my mind. Was it going to turn into a Brokeback Mountain type situation and these guys were going to 69 each other in the tent? There were hints of that. I mean, as far as the whole homoerotic angle on this thing, I just felt like Kurt was so lonely and desperate for connection that his only friend left on Earth, who he knew wouldn't turn him down, was Mark. And Mark has moved on. Mark works for a living. Mark will soon have an additional mouth to feed. Mark is not the same Mark, but Kurt is the same Kurt. He's a load and a loser, and he smokes a lot of weed. And I think we all have friends like this. Guys or gals we've known for way too many years who have long fallen behind in their ascension. They can't keep up with us. Or maybe they have the right idea about how to live, but we just don't have the heart to shake them off or refuse their reach outs. And I'm assuming this might be the Old Joy, the friend that made me happy once but now no longer does. Because I have nothing to identify with him anymore, I have no idea. I just know that there are some scenes so real and so painful and so stunningly frank in this thing